Hey guys, it's Penelope. This one really is for the ladies. I'm going to bring up a book called Women Who Love Too Much, but the guys can listen to this too. It doesn't have to just be for ladies, but it was just an interesting thing that I'm up to. On every Saturday on meetup.com, I do a free hour and a half in the UK in the evening, and which would be the afternoon in New York, so about 7:30 p.m. in the UK. I do an hour and a half, and I'm currently reading a book called Women Who Love Too Much. And quite a while ago, I spoke to Pete Walker, who wrote this book, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. So if you've had childhood trauma, it's so important that we get psychoeducated. And what that means is that we understand the terminology and what we're actually dealing with. So this book is a map to understanding complex PTSD. The difference between complex PTSD and PTSD is quite simple. Don't take it literal, but just a simple explanation will be that PTSD is generally a one-off event that shocks the system, shocks the body, and we keep having reoccurring problems as a result of that one-off event. So you might think of a one-off event in your life. Also, it is attributed, if that's the right word, to soldiers that have been at war. But again, I would, relate that if it's more than one event, then it's got to be complex PTSD. And also complex PTSD can be memories from childhood, early imprints that we have not yet fully come to our consciousness. It could be the way a parent looked at us. It could be, it's that early input. So don't take it literal, do your own research, but that's just a short understanding. So this book, Pete Walker wrote, and here it says, this new book is invaluable, comprehensive, a resource to anyone with a childhood history of trauma. This book is certain to benefit clients and clinicians alike. And I absolutely agree with him. I bought this book in 2017, November. And it took me a couple of years to really integrate what he was talking about in this book. And I was lucky enough to be able to speak to him a couple of times. I booked a couple of hours with him. He lives in Berkeley, I believe, in San Francisco, and California, rather. So now let's go here. Also, what I want to say, if you're going through any depression at the moment, abandonment depression, a lot of depression that we have as adults stems back to childhood, to being abandoned. So see this link here. I'll put it in the video below so that you're able to access this link and read an article on abandonment depression, which is really important to understand. Now I'm going to look at this book and I'm going to read a little bit and explain something to you. And this is the workshop or the meetup I do every Saturday. So towards the end of this book, in my meetup group, we're halfway through at the moment and we're coming up to chapter 6. But this book is the reason I got this book is because I spoke to Pete Walker and I asked him, I said, what is the best book for codependency? Because in complex PTSD, we have 4 types of response. We have fight, we have flight, we have freeze, and we have fawn. And there's such a thing as healthy fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And then we have unhealthy fight, flight, freeze, fawn. So when I say unhealthy, it's a response that's no longer working for us. It's just a response that's an imprint in us that we keep playing out when we get triggered. And we'll go into 1 or 2 of these behaviors. And also, in order to stop that, we need to understand what they are, and we need to understand what complex PTSD is. So this book, I'm looking at the last couple of pages and looking at the healthy side of what happens to a woman when she has recovered from codependency. And the man, if you're listening, if any men are listening, you can apply this to yourselves as well, because I think that we're all human and we've all got emotions and feelings. But this book was specifically written for ladies. So towards the end of this book, page 283, she's referring to somebody that began therapy with her and what happened to this woman after working through her own codependency issues, the woman that she was helping. So she says that this is what happens when women recover from loving too much. Number one, she accepts herself fully even while wanting to change parts of herself. There is a basic self-love and self-regard which she carefully nurtures and purposefully expands. So part of the thing is that you'll be able to get to a point where you are loving yourself and you have self-regard, healthy self-regard, and you nurture yourself. And part of that work will be part of the complex PTSD work, which is really looking at your triggers and then building a bond with your inner child. And again, this does apply to men as well, I'd like to add. Number two, she accepts others as they are without trying to change them to meet her needs. So often what women do, and men as well, but let's go with I keep saying that with the women, we're going to stick to the rest of the book, that basically as we learn to love ourselves and we have healthy self-regard, when we don't if something's not working, we don't go into this fawn, which fawn is where we will try and be nice and try and people please in order to get what we want, which in itself can be manipulative. It's a manipulative strategy which can be formed in childhood just to have our basic needs met. So it's not about blame, it's about awareness. And number three, she is in touch with her feelings and attitudes about every aspect of her life, including her sexuality. So this is when we're healing, what begins to happen. We get back in touch with who we are. Number four, she cherishes every part of herself, her personality, her appearance, her beliefs and values, her body, her interests and her accomplishments, and she validates herself rather than searching for a relationship to give her a sense of self-worth. So healing, being a healthy person, would be that we can self-validate, that we don't need somebody else to self-validate us to know how valid and how much we're worth. Number five, her self-esteem is great enough that she can enjoy being with others, especially men who are fine just as they are. She does not need to be needed in order to feel worthy. Number six, she allows herself to be open and trusting with appropriate people. She is not afraid to be known at a deeply personal level, but she also does not expose herself to the exploitation of those who are not interested in her well-being. So we really have to listen to those words, that we do not exploit ourselves to those who are not interested in our well-being. And that will become obvious who is interested in our well-being and who is not, because we will no longer just go by words, we will go by actions. So this is the healed, it's not all or nothing healing, but it's very much the healed woman, the healed soul. 7, she questions, is this relationship good for me? Does it enable me to grow into all I am capable of being? So instead of asking the question, am I good enough? Is there something wrong with me? How can I keep this relationship? We begin to focus on self. Is this relationship good for me? Does it enable me to grow into all I am capable of being? So, and then we get to answer that honestly. And as we answer honestly, then we will make different choices. And we won't stay stuck in things that are not appropriate as well. Number 8, when a relationship is destructive, she is able to let go of it without experiencing disabling depression. She has a circle of supportive friends and healthy interests to see her through the crisis. So that's another important thing to take on board as we're healing. Number 9, she values her own serenity above all else. All the struggles, drama, and chaos of the past have lost their appeal. So she is protective of herself, her health, and her well-being. Because when we're in things that are uncomfortable, we're going to be constantly in fight, flight, and fight, flight, freeze, fawn. We're wanting to please. We're wanting to, wondering what the hell's going on sometimes. So we stop doing that too. And number 10, she knows that a relationship, in order to work, must be between partners who share similar values, interests, and goals, and who each have a capacity for intimacy. She knows that she is worthy of the best that life has to offer. So that's ended on page 284. I highly recommend you get this book if you're female, along with the Pete Walker book, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. I do not believe that most people who have these problems of loving too much came from a childhood that was lacking in one way or another. And people can say, oh, you know, no, my childhood was quite good. And we'd be surprised when we start reading material to understand what is good and what's good enough. Now, here's some beautiful image. This is the feminine, the caring nurturer, and that's within us because we have all of these different parts within us. If you look at internal family systems, Google internal family systems, it talks about parts that we have inside of us. So we have this part inside of us. We don't need to seek outside of us for this part. It's the nurturing and the fearless one, in my view, looking at the picture. And then the goddess can be all different shapes and sizes. You know, this is just an image I liked because I'm very into Neptune at the moment as an evolutionary astrologer. So I like the blue and the sea and the beauty of the sea and water. So that's the reason I chose this image. And then we have the defender, the warrior, the woman who, you know, is on the lookout for herself. She's not too overly hypervigilant, but she's hypervigilant enough to know that she has her own back. And again, that's very empowering to know. But when we can have our friends as well, and we can have male-female friendships and, you know, a partner as well that supports us, but we have to grow into these things. So that's it for today, and I'll be back with some more, but do join me if you want to join me, ladies, the ladies group. I'm going to put the link below for my meetup group so that you can meet every Saturday if you wish to do that. And if you want any help, or you want your astrology looked at, or you're looking at any childhood wounding or sexual abuse or anything like that, I'm available to speak on those things. Catch you later, and thanks for watching.